so they can learn how to think, learn, and find their sense of purpose in life. So I'm very excited to have her on the show. Now, Dr. Leaf, something that I've really enjoyed doing before I even start these interviews is giving you 3 comments from the web, and these are all pulled from different platforms, and here they go. Number 1, thanks, Dr. Leaf. You are doing God's work by teaching others the truth. Thanks and many blessings to you. Number 2, I have learned so much from your teachings and will continue learning. And number 3, I've learned one of her books, and In and Out, Switch on Your Brain. It is amazing. We should have more scientists in the body of Christ. May God raise up more godly doctors and scientists. So, Dr. Leaf, when you hear all this talk, how does that make you feel?
It makes me feel, thank you, first of all, for all of that and everything. I appreciate it. It just makes me realize how important this is, that people understand their mind. And we get thousands of emails and thousands of direct messages and comments, and it's always in that vein. And it's very humbling because it makes you realize that this is an area that is not well addressed or not well dealt with in any sphere, whether it is in the church environment, the government, education, corporate, mental health. I mean, the mental health field is such a mess as well. And, that's why I do what I do, is to try and bring an understanding of mental health to everyone, because we all have a mind, we all have a brain. Mental health affects everyone. We all battle. There's not a single human who doesn't, because life is filled with adverse circumstances. And we need to normalize this, and we need to give people ways to understand mind and cope, and strategies to cope with this. Not all the scary stuff that we've been given, that mental health is a brain disease and that you have to go to a professional to get a diagnosis, and that's actually made things worse. It hasn't improved things. It's made things so much worse. So
That's so beautiful that you say that. And one thing that just stuck out was just like, we're all human. We all go through this, right? So
yeah.
literally hearing a person that is huge on faith and also huge on the science, and for you to let them know, hey, it's okay. We all go through this, no matter how perfect we can seem on the external. We all have those internal battles. And when really looking at your work, you always talk about this is a lifelong process. Like, yes, you may do the 21-day detox, and yes, it may, take up to the 9-week span to really change or formulate a new habit, but the foundation is like, you're never done. You're never completed with this. But before we even go into any of that, you have 4 children and it's the summertime now. Like, have you guys been on any adventures lately? Have you done anything really fun? What's going on with that?
Adults now. All my kids are adults. So they're 23, 24, 27, and 30. 2 are married. So it's, we just went, a couple of my kids went to Greece recently, but we've been very busy with research trials, clinical trials and work. So we haven't done a family holiday yet this summer, although I'd like to get out of this heat. It's too hot here, and we love the sea. So we are looking, yeah. So not as a family this summer, but we did recently go away.
I love that. And one thing that I always enjoy, Dr. Leaf, is just making, people who are academic heavyweights as yourself just seem a bit more human. Wow, she has kids, she has children. That's incredible. They travel, they have their differences, so to speak. But one thing that also stood out for me is you went through a very strict upbringing, and you said, you know what, I want to raise my children with the philosophy of, thinking and asking questions, so to speak. And now, since they're all adults now, how would you rate, because you're always about self-regulating and being, very aware of all your thoughts. How does that happen when you look at your kids now? Are you, pleased with what you did?
Absolutely, because life is very challenging, and if you don't teach your children in a very authentic way that it is very normal to have emotions as an adult and model how to manage those, life is going to, whether you have the best childhood or the worst childhood, whether you're always going to have challenges. And what I really wanted my children to grow up with was recognizing that's okay. It's okay to have a mental, to be messy, to battle, and but you need to manage that there's a way through it. So we grew up with we brought them up with a very open household. They could challenge us, they could tell us what we've done wrong, and we could say sorry. So we've had that kind of very open door policy of, mom, you did this, dad, you did this really upset me, and we could say sorry and then help them process that. If I'm sad or depressed or anxious or whatever, or upset about something, I'm very honest and authentic about telling them this is how I feel. And obviously you make a lot of mistakes, but having that open door policy of teaching them how to think is really important. And my kids, all 4, will tell you that one of the greatest gifts we've given them, besides knowing that they have unconditional love and all the normal stuff, is that we taught them to think and to question And that does make it does mean bringing up your kids, because I didn't bring up with children are seen and not heard and man up and all that kind of stuff. It was all very much teaching them to tune into their emotions and to help them understand and help them process and challenge. And they've all gone through stuff, and it makes it much more difficult parenting because you are much more involved, and I'm involved in everything in their lives. They don't just go to other people. They want me around. They want to me to talk them through stuff, help them through stuff. So it is a different kind of parenting. It is very demanding, but it's very rewarding, and these adults are growing into beautiful adults that are managing through the messes of life. So it's very rewarding to see that.
That is such a great answer because you said it's very rewarding, but it's much more difficult because you are much more involved. And
Yes.
and as I'm listening to you speak, I'm like, well, if this is the healthy way just for generations and just the world and just to complete, the the work of God, so to speak, is to raise children who are very healthy and who have the mindset to and the ability to think for themselves. And that's what you're doing, right? The better somebody's able to think for themselves, the closer they're going to be able to grow to God. So it's like I've never heard anything or just experience anything or any teachings the way you're able to do it. So I'm just a huge fan, and I want to keep repeating that all throughout the interview because a lot of you already know who she is, but for those who don't, dive deep into her books, and we're going to get into that. But before we do that, this is still the family section, but we talk so much about relationships on this show. And when it comes to you and your husband, Mac, is that his name, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, how long have you been with him, number one? Number two, what has your relationship with him taught you about yourself?
We've been together for 34 and a half, almost 35 years now, married for 33 and a half years. And it's been, we have a fantastic relationship, but I'm very authentic about it too. Like in any marriage, there's problems that you've had to go through, and we talk about it very openly. But there's been such a solid love, and we had a few like rules in our marriage, and that was that we would never go to sleep without resolving issues, and we never give each other the silent treatment, and rather stay up all night arguing than just not resolving stuff. And that is so important. I do a lot of teaching as well on the relationships in mind and brain, and just a couple of weeks back I did a podcast with my husband talking about the importance. We were talking about the importance of not letting issues just be suppressed, or the elephant in the room, speak about them, the importance of bringing them up even if it makes you uncomfortable. So there's a lot of, I think, misteaching out there especially in the religious communities, about, oh, a perfect marriage, you've got to submit to the husband, and everything's got to be perfect all the time. This is a lot of nonsense. There's equality between us. There's no one who's the leader in our house. We are equally running this home. We run everything together. We talk about things. We express things. It's okay to argue. That's what we've taught our kids. It's okay to argue because it is normal to, as long as you keep the rules in place, that you do it decently. And if you don't, that you say sorry and you self-regulate. And that's what I would really encourage people, is to stop pretending that there aren't issues. You are different people going through different things. It's better to express them because you'll have a stronger marriage. We have such a powerful marriage. And one of the things that our kids will tell us every anniversary, I mean, just as our most recent anniversary, our kids basically sent us on a weekend away, fully paid for, to a beautiful place, all our favorite restaurants, like spoilt us rotten from start to finish. And their comment was, we did this because we want what you and dad have. And that's the biggest compliment that you can give. And they've seen us argue. They've seen us have awful fights, but they've always seen us resolve it. We never leave it. That incredible respect and love for each other's there. And that's what's really, I think, very important. Sorry, I swallowed wrong. I've been talking all day,
Yeah.
and I swallowed wrong there because I was talking. I don't know what happened there.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, you were talking all day, and I believe it because it just, again, going through your vast amount of work and just like the enthusiasm that you have for it. And would you call it ambition, or would you call it that's just your divine calling because you have lectured in front of thousands and you go to all these different churches around the world, and you're a really important person because like you said, with the healthy thought trees and the toxic trees, you're making people think so much healthier. And sometimes you can't even fathom, Dr. Leaf, what you are doing and creating, and how much better the world is going to be because you exist. But you also do say that, the science field is very vigorous and it's very disciplined. So how do you keep yourself just personally childlike and playful?
Well, that's my husband has a lot to do with that. He's a lot of fun. I mean, he likes to have a lot of fun, and you've got to keep that fun. Fun is so important for your mental health and brain. So we're very much about that, and we bring in, I think this openness, a lifestyle of openness that we have is huge. By the way, thank you for all those nice things that you've been saying. I do appreciate them. That's very important. We have a lot of community in our family, so we're always doing stuff together. And we honoring the differences that everyone goes through, and no one is made to feel bad or shamed if they're going through a hard time or if they're being difficult. We recognize that if any of us in the family are maybe more irritable than normal or more depressed than normal or have got patterns that are potentially toxic, we we allow that. We accept that. We recognize that's not who they are. That's what they're going through. It's a sign of something. And how can we help? How can we support? Healthy boundaries, that kind of stuff. So we really try to apply that in our life. And so we're very very close family in that way. And I think that in terms of what do we do? I do a lot of brain building. So my scientific world is very, very important to me. It's very spiritual to me. I spend hours studying and researching because I'm always writing. I'm doing clinical trials all the time, which require a lot of work, and writing public journal articles, which are very, very complex. I'm always writing a new book. We've got new projects underway. So I'm always developing my brain, and that's something that's so important. I used to do that with all my patients. Brain building is absolutely essential to being resilient. And if I'm really having a difficult time with something, I will go and build my brain, do brain building, and then I'll do detoxing. And I'll do that as a lifestyle. I apply the neurocycle that I've developed. My latest book, I don't know if you know this one,
Of
Cleaning Up
course,
Your
of
Mental
course.
Mess, the
Hmm.
latest book. The 5-step process I've developed, the neurocycle. It's a lifestyle. I do it. The kids do it. We all do it. It's something that's ingrained, and that has helped a lot. Obviously, we then also focus a lot on good healthy eating, working out. We work out. All of us work out, and that's just something we do as a family. We go to Orange Theory together. We go to hot yoga together, and we like sauna, and it's a big thing. And cooking meals. We're very Italian like that, making meals. We've got all the kids coming around this evening, and husbands and whatever, and going to have a big meal tonight and cook it all. So we do a lot of that, which is I think all that combination. But you've got to work at it. It's not something that you've got to work at it, because we have bad days and frustrating things go on, and it can be more difficult. But you just keep supporting each other. And there's someone who's up, then the other one's down, then the one who's down, the other one who's up, support. So we've created a very strong community amongst ourselves, which we maintain and we work at.
I mean, that's so incredible, and there's so much to unpack there. But the beauty of it is that you're still practicing. This is a lifelong practice. This isn't something
Yeah,
that, yeah,
we love it.
this isn't, you're not going to read Dr. Leaf's book, put it down, and then just be able to continue, because as you say, it's very difficult to change those patterns, but we can do it. And that's what you give everybody, just that awareness of God made you to be able to change your mind. So start with that, right? Now, you know a lot about nutrition as well. So just one other question before we get into your book is, what's like a day of eating for you? I think our listeners would be very curious about, okay, so if Dr. Leaf knows all of this, what is she ingesting from the time she goes to bed, until she wakes up? Like what's that looking like?
I get asked that question quite a lot. Yeah, I do teach about that. I don't follow any one particular diet.
Mm-hmm.
And my basic philosophy is that we've got to eat real food mindfully. So the mind is vital, because your mind drives your body. Your mind is 90% of who you are. And your brain and body are only 1 to 10%. So your the way your mindset is influences the ability of your digestive system to actually work properly to assimilate the nutrients. So you can be eating a really healthy, farm to table, hormone free, GMO free, sustainable, real food. I'm not. I don't advocate any one diet, because I don't think we should. I think it's really wrong to advocate a diet, because all of us are unique. You've got to find your own unique way of eating. There's 6 now and 2 husbands in our family, so there's 8 of us, and we all eat quite differently. So it's I at the moment I'm doing very much like sort of keto type eating, but I'm not fanatic about any one way of eating. You've got to find what works for you. It doesn't work for some of my kids, it works for some. So it's very much about eating the real food mindfully. So the mindfulness is huge, because you could be eating that really fantastic meal, but if you are totally worried about maybe if I'm worrying about a child in my family and I'm not doing something, I'm just worrying. So instead of managing that mess, so I can worry, but but it must be managed. So let's say I'm worried, but it's messy and I'm not managing it. I'm just going in this rumination, and I eat that healthy, super healthy meal. Then I'm going to lose up to 86% of the nutrition. Versus if I am worried about one of my kids, but I'm managing that worry by using the neurocycle. So I've got a plan in place. I'm not just going around and round and round. I'm actually accepting that I'm worried, the reasons why I'm worried, what I'm going to do about it. So I go through the whole process. When I eat that meal, I'm going to get the full nutrition from it. So that's really key. Mindset drives the ability of the digestive system to work and for your brain and body to get the food it needs. Your brain takes 25 to 35% of every first bite. It needs the most nutrition. It takes the best quality, amount, etc., goes to your brain first and then the rest of your body. So, we need to recognize that mind drives brain, drives body. So we need to be very aware of how we're eating, what we're eating. I'd say to people often, if you are very worked up and very anxious, very worried, or anything in any kind of extreme state, when even any of those signals are flying, rather get yourself into a calmer state before you eat, because it's going to mess with your neurochemistry, your digestive system, etc., etc. So eat real food mindfully is the motto that I apply and that I teach.
And Dr. Leaf, this is another reason why you drive me crazy and your work drives me crazy. It's because people don't go that extra step, and that's what you do. People give you the scripture, but they don't give you the science, right? People tell you what to eat, but they don't tell you why. And you're giving everything around it. A lot of people can tell you the specific diet, at what time intervals to eat them, what utensils to, to use and all that goodness, but they don't realize if you're in that fight or flight mode, so to speak, and you don't feel good, you just had like a really bad car accident, or you had a huge argument, or you just, you're going through something traumatic within that time frame, eating something isn't going to digest well. Even just me personally, when I eat and I'm in a heightened state, I can't digest it. Like I feel almost nauseous and
Mhm.
it's silly to a lot of people who see me eat, because they go, oh, why are you eating without, watching something? Or why can't I tell you the story while you eat? Or even if somebody wants to tell me like a hard, rough story before bed, I don't like that, because I know it's going to change me. I know it's
Very
going to affect me. And people think that they can eat and drive and do all those things. It's like, it's not about, like, what is your actual goal here? Is it to stuff food down your mouth, or like you say, to get the actual nutrients from it? So, oh, Dr. Leaf, we're gonna need 100 hours with you, but to jump into your book, switch on your brain, the key to peak happiness, thinking, and health. Now, one thing I wanted to mention as I was going through it again, I just love the layout of the book, how right before each chapter, you have that main scripture and you pair it with a linked science concept. So I thought that alone was really good. So somebody who's not faith-based, if they were to start reading your book, you can actually start converting people. So that was actually like a really cool thing that you did. Now, going through your work, I
I
think
didn't
what
actually do that for that reason. Sorry, I didn't do it for that reason. I put that there because I'm a very spiritual person, but I do believe that there's a lot of value in other faiths too. So I think it's what I'm trying to get people to do is be very spiritual. I'm trying to get people to see that science and spirituality are the same thing, just two different sides of a coin. So I just wanted to throw that in there because I don't want anyone to feel that they have to change what they believe. That's one thing. I don't force anything on anyone. It's got to come from within.
and you
So
know what? That is actually such a good point that you bring that up, because if somebody never read the book and they just heard it that way, right? They could think, "Oh, what is she trying to do? What is her mission?" But if you actually do read all her book, you never feel that. That's I can tell you that. You never feel like, well, when you accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, then you can read this book, and you don't do that. You give them all the tools, and just like with the diet, you said it's wrong for me to say you have to do this. We're all different, but I'm going to give you what I know works for me, right? And another part of that, and I believe this has worked a lot for you, is the concept of accountability. Like that's what you preach on a whole lot. And if that's where we really make the change, when we're held accountable just to ourselves, why is it so easy, Dr. Lee, for us to just have that victim mentality and, well, I can't accept blame or responsibility for this or that because I'm almost letting my mother off if I do that, right? Then I'm saying it's not her fault and it really was her fault. So what do you mean by that when you say we need to be more accountable?
Okay, so just quickly, very coming to the to switch on your brain. That book was brought out in 2013. It's interesting. People still love that book.
Mm,
I have got a book that I've done a lot of books in between that one. There's
mm,
been about 5 or 6, and this is my most recent, Cleaning Up Your Mental
right.
Mess. And this is a really great. If you haven't yet read it, it's
Mm,
a really great follow up because I take the science even deeper and even more. I've done more clinical trials and things, so we can talk a little bit about just how this is developed, this concept, because that's very important as a scientist.
mm,
And the point I want to make there, as a scientist, we constantly are researching and organically growing. And as a human, we are. No one ever's made it. We're always in this process of scientific discovery
mm,
and about ourselves as humans, as well as if we are
always.
scientists. So that's really important to get that. And what you then you just you gave the example of how we can so easily become victims and why accountability is so important. So what I emphasize so much in this book,
Mm,
and I have an app as well called the Neurocycle app, is self-regulation. And you also mentioned that earlier on. We are so brilliant as humans. We are able to monitor ourselves 24 every 10 seconds, literally. We can stand back and observe how we are talking, the words we're using, the impact of our words on others, the impact of our words on ourselves, how we're managing situations. We're very able to do that. We have this wise part of us that I call the wise mind. And then we have our messy mind, which is our experimental mind. Both are beautiful, both are parts of our humanity. We can think, feel, and choose. We're supposed to be exploring. And we make mistakes, and that's okay as long as we manage them, because in the messiness, we can repair and grow. So, what we're supposed to be doing as humans is being accountability is linked to self-regulation, which is linked to this ability to recognize that I'm in life with my ability to think, feel, choose. I'm not a pre-programmed robot. It's not my brain making me do it. It's my mind. Mind and brain are separate, and we can discuss that in a little bit more depth. But essentially, your mind is 90 to 99% of who you are. Your mind drives your brain and your body. Your brain and body are 1 to 10% of who you are. The difference between you and I and a dead person is the mind. The mind is our aliveness, our ability to process this discussion, to process everything that's happening in our lives as from the time we wake up to the time we go to sleep. And when I say our mind processes, how does it do it? By thinking, feeling, choosing. So the mind in action, this processing in action, is our ability to think, feel, and choose, which generates this incredible energy. It's all around us and through us. It's all the stuff. It's what the same energy that makes the Zoom work and our cell phones work. It's not something weird. It's what keeps us alive. And a dead person doesn't have that. So our mind is this driving force that enables us to experimentally experience life in a messy way, and then to stand back and repair that. So if you have to argue with someone and you respond in a negative way, it's self-regulation and accountability is saying, okay, I own it. I was irritable. I was irritated. I got frustrated. I shouted. I swore. I did whatever. That's okay. That's the messy mind. I accept that, but now what am I going to do about that? How am I going to manage that mess, as opposed to just staying in that mess, feeling guilty, which then adds to the mess and increases damage in your brain and your body. So I teach people that we need to be constantly self-regulating. From the neuroscience, we see we can do that every 10 seconds, which means that in any one course of a day, from the time you wake up till the time you go to sleep, you will process somewhere between 8,000 and 10,000 events. And like this discussion now is making up a portion of those, because we're talking about a whole bunch of stuff and people are experiencing that and stimulating existing memories and thoughts, memories inside thoughts and so on. And those are different too, which we must also maybe just break down for people, that memories and thoughts are not the same thing. And we processing that through our mind into our brain as physical changes in our brain. That's neuroplasticity. And these thoughts look like trees. That's why I always use the analogy of the trees here, my famous trees, the healthy one and the toxic one. So if we're having we're having a really healthy discussion, so all the roots of this tree, which are the memories of this tree, are our discussion and the things I'm saying. The branches, which are of memories too, are the interpretation of that. So each one of us hears everything that you're experiencing. So I don't know how many listeners listen to you, but let's say there's a few thousand people listening. They're all going to have the same roots, but they're going to all have different branches, because we all uniquely think, feel, and choose in our own way. And then that combination is how we then will manifest this information in our life in terms of improved mental health or whatever it may be. Now, that could be a toxic experience. So that could be the toxic, the issues through COVID, or an argument with someone, or a bullying, or whatever. That's the toxic root. And then this is your interpretation of that. So I'm holding up a wiry tree. This is also physical structure in the brain. This has also changed the brain in a negative way. These proteins are real. This is a real physical structure. All the proteins, chemistry, everything's all imbalanced here, and this causes brain damage. So this is the mess we need to repair. So we need to capture that thought, and we need to actually embrace it, to process it, to reconceptualize it. We need to deconstruct and reconstruct it. This is the stuff of life, the adverse circumstances that every human is going to go through in varying degrees. We're going to have big traumas and little traumas and complex traumas and adverse circumstances and argument. This is inevitable in life because we are at the mercy of other people's choices, and we can't control events and circumstances, aka the pandemic. I mean, this is a classic example in point. So we can't control what happens to us, but we can control what's in us. And managing your mind is the process of recognizing the patterns in your life and becoming a thought detective to work out, okay, why do I have this pattern of depression? Why do I have these patterns in my relationship? What's disrupting my functioning? And then doing the work to deconstruct and reconstruct that. And that process is all mind driven. And there's the whole psychology thing of what I've described, but it's actual physical changes that's in your mind that happens. It's mind stuff, psychology stuff, plus it's also physical stuff. So it's chemical, it's waves, it's quantum physics, it's neurochemistry, it's quantum physics, it's electromagnetics, it's genetic changes. There's all these things. So every experience, like this discussion now, is building into your brain in the root system and the branches, your interpretation. This is a thought. So this is a thought tree. This thought that you're building now is a product of mind. Your mind is now experiencing this discussion. The name of the tree is mental health, or mind brain, or Dr. Leaf, whatever you've called it. But I'm giving you thousands of bits of information. So this thought is made of lots of memories. So memories and thoughts are different. A thought is made of memories, like a tree is made of roots and branches. So those are the interpretation memories, those are the root memories, and that together produces the behavior and the action. And every day, every moment of every day, our mind is experiencing life and our brain is changing. Even no thought stays the same because new information is added, you change, you grow. So everything keeps changing. It's very organic, and we can direct that change. We can, every 10 seconds, we can manage, we can be accountable for how we are managing those processes. So if it is messy, what are we going to do? Are we just going to suppress it and whack a scripture on like a Band-Aid and use God as a genie, or a positive affirmation as a Band-Aid? That's not going to work. You can't just do that. You have to actually embrace it. You have to own it. You have to acknowledge it, and then you have to change it. You have to see this, all the warning signals as a helpful messengers to help guide us through that process. So that's essentially what I've been doing all these years, and 38 years of brain research and over 25 years of practicing clinically, and to try and help understand mind, brain, thoughts, memories, feelings. How does it all work together, and how can we be accountable? So something happens in your life, and let's say you have it awful parenting, and you have wonderful parenting, but your mom makes mistakes. Your dad, I'm a parent of 4. I've made plenty. Things that I didn't intend to, but my intentions were good, but my impact was negative. So as an adult, you ask one of your first questions, what have I done? I mean, I've had to sit and have my kids tell me, Mom, when you did this is how it wrecked my life. I've had to listen to that, and I've had to say sorry and acknowledge that and be accountable for that. And at the same time, my children have to acknowledge that, process that, and be accountable for the fact that, well, I can blame my mom the rest of my life for this that caused this, or I can actually have this discussion, recognize that this happened, that was my interpretation, this is how it impacted me, I'm aware of that, I'm going to now fix that, find that, sort that out, and reconstruct it and change it into that so that it doesn't impact my future in a negative way. And therefore, I take responsibility. I'm accountable for it. I recognize that if I did something to my children that caused them pain, I must be accountable. At the same time, they need to be accountable for finding out why they have that pattern, and then accepting and going through the process of forgiveness. But you can't just forgive and forget. You've got to deconstruct. You've got to reconstruct. You've got to tell that person the impact, and that person needs to own that impact. And then together, you collectively can reconstruct. So, that's kind of a long answer to accountable self-regulation, but it keeps us out of being a victim mentality. People who are raped and abused and go through terrible murder, physical, that when you're a victim, there's no lesson to be learned in that. And that's terrible meme that goes around religious circles and on the internet and just in general about, there's lessons to be learned in the trauma. There are no lessons to be learned in the trauma. Trauma is a mess. What you have to do is repair and grow. And we've got to stop telling people to learn how do you learn a message from someone who's raped your child or you've been raped? There's no lesson in that. There's only pain. But what you have to do is know how to process that. You've got to go back and that person was wrong. Forgiving doesn't mean you forget. Forgiving means that you release that you disconnect from that person and you release that. Otherwise, they stay connected to you. Quantum physics shows that any kind of relationship, toxic or healthy, will keep you connected. So you have to disentangle, and that's what forgiveness will do. But forgiveness won't work if you don't actually process. So you have to understand, I'm doing this because this happened, and that's my interpretation. It's not sustainable. It's unhealthy. Part of my healing is to recognize where it comes from, release that person, but now reprocess. And that person, well, they've got to go sort their own, they've got to go and be accountable for what they have done. But it's not your responsibility to fix or change them, but it is your responsibility to disconnect. Otherwise, you're going to feel like the victim your whole life and you give them power over you. So you want your power back. You want your agency back. So that's a long answer for accountability, but I think we kind of hit the main points.
You sure did. You sure did. And I'm in La La Land right now. I'm literally in heaven because everything you say, and you pride yourself in being tangible, right? Because this is the scientific literature and all the research can get a bit daunting for somebody who's not in that particular field. So when it comes to your newest book, what was the driving force behind it? What made you say, you know what? I have to put all these hours and all these, years into this new book. What do you hope somebody gets from it when they pick it up?
The awareness that it's okay to have a mess. It's totally a normal human reaction. That depression, anxiety, even things like scary words like bipolar and schizophrenia, the extreme end, none of those mean that you're a broken person. You're not a broken brain. You don't have a brain disease. Mental health has been so badly handled for the last 150 years, but honestly, especially in the last 40 years, 50 years, the psychiatric industry is a disaster. And people aren't getting better, they're getting worse because we've removed the humanity out of people and we've taken symptoms, we've turned normal emotional responses into medical symptoms of a disease, and that's criminal in my opinion. And it's created a problem where people are actually dying 8 to 25 years younger than they should from preventable lifestyle diseases because of not acknowledging the humanity of being alive in adverse circumstances. So if someone's experienced rape or abuse or bullying or just the COVID pandemic impact, etc., just life and relationship issues, someone at work bullying you, the child who's being difficult, a parent who's going through something and it affects you, life, that we have reactions. We'll get sad, we'll get depressed, we'll get frustrated, we'll get irritated when someone's unreasonable and they're screaming and shouting about something that they shouldn't be. You can get totally mad and frustrated. That's all normal. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It doesn't mean if you have a long bout of depression because of a terrible breakup that there's something, that you've got a brain disease. And that's what people are being told. People say, I'm being depressed for a few days. Boom, label, symptom diagnosis. The research shows that as soon as you're given a label, you are putting yourself in the bracket where you can actually die, chop another 20 years of your life. So this is where we get the figure 8 to 25 years. People are dying for years. People have been living longer, but not anymore. For the last, since 1996, this pattern has changed. We've had a disaster over the last 40 years. And COVID has obviously increased shortened by another 2 years, chopped off another 2 years. But it's being mismanaged because all they want to do is label and diagnose, which will make it worse. What we have to do is give people, and this is what I'm doing trying to do with this book, is give people permission to feel. If you're feeling sad because you've lost a loved one, if you've lost finances, you're in grief, that is normal. There's nothing wrong with you. You're an amazing, incredible human being who's experienced adverse circumstances, and you've been isolated for months. You've been frightened for months. You've maybe lost, as I said, loved ones, maybe your own health, maybe your brain feels crazy. I just did a podcast today on the effect of COVID on the brain and how you can change that. And I have a conference coming up, my annual conference, where I'm going to be talking heavily about how we can change what's happened to our minds and our brains from the pandemic. And so we have that power in us. We can change. There's so much hope that in the messiness of our mind, we can repair and grow. So this book is very driven by that. I continue to do clinical trials, and I did a whole lot of a couple of trials over the last couple of years. You've got another huge one starting now, and I simplify them and put into the first half of this book. I put in a summary of them to show people in a very simple way, to help people to understand what the impact is on this whole mind, brain, body, or psychoneurobiological connection. and to put into everyone's hands scientific evidence that you have an amazing mind. Your mind drives your brain and your body. Your brain and body don't drive your mind. As you're experiencing adverse circumstances, this is going to physically be converted by your mind into your brain as these toxic trees. It also gets built into your body down in the level of your DNA. Your telomeres get affected. And telomeres impact our cells, your cellular health, which means your body health. And it also gets in your mind, the waves of your mind, the gravitational fields and electromagnetic forces, which is what we pick up with technology like an EKG on your heart. That is your mind moving through your heart, literally. QEEG technology, which is, the technology that I use in my research, which picks up the brain's response as we're thinking. So the mind moving through the brain, you can pick up that response. You can't read the thoughts, but you can pick up the response. A dead person, there wouldn't be that response. So in other words, that whole mind force, this incredible ability to sort of spiritual soul, mind, brain, body ability, think, feel, choose ability we have is driving the brain and the body. So cumulatively over time, we are converting life's experiences and we're not managing the toxic ones. And we're just trying to suppress them. Excuse me. We are going to cumulatively over time increase the vulnerability of our brain and our body to disease by 75 to 98%. So for example, if there's something that happened to me in my life and there's the roots, I'm the victim. There was no reason that should have happened to you, and that's your interpretation. So sexual trauma is the easiest to explain because there's always that's the sexual trauma is distorted. The response will be distorted. So very often people that have suffered sexual trauma will look at themselves with shame and hatred and feel that they deserve bad things. And they become quite difficult people very often because they're very depressed and anxious and that kind of thing because they feel so bad and hate themselves. So this thing oozes out into their life and their relationships, and eventually they can kind of crash if it's not processed, because this is now toxic. It's a real thing. It's proteins in your brain. This tree is made of protein. Your immune system recognizes it in the same way as it would recognize COVID. COVID is proteins, and your immune system says, hey, you mustn't be there, and it tries to fight it. This is all distorted proteins. Your immune system says, hey, this is threatening your survival. We need to deal with this. So you become aware, then you suppress it. It gets worse. It gets worse. It grows bigger. That sets a whole downstream reaction affecting your cortisol levels, your homocysteine levels. You get inflammation, your endocrine system, your heart gets affected. And over time, it builds up. And eventually, accumulation of time, these undealt with issues create this vulnerability in your body. So you start getting heart issues and immune system issues and gut issues and vulnerable to everything, going out there and catching everything. And this is where there's been so much talk around COVID, is that it's so important that our immune system's healthy, but it's more important that our mind is healthy. We're going to heal from COVID if we need healthy minds. We need a mind focus, not a medical focus. We've got to deal with the medical. Don't get me wrong. We've got to have, thank God for medicine, that we can treat the effects of things like the COVID and the effects of things like our mind, because our mind will change our body. These toxic issues, right down to the level of the DNA, affect your ability of your chromosomes to make new cells, and we make 1 million new cells every second. So if we're not managing our mind, we're actually sending an energy through the brain that damages telomeres, which are the ends of chromosomes. Chromosomes look like little X's. I'm making an X with my finger, and imagine your fingernails are the telomeres. If those are weak, the cells you make are weak, which means every system of your organ of your body and every system of your body is weak. Over time, that means you're going to have a weak heart. You're going to have a weak body. So it's not a matter of I have a bad thought and I'm going to get cancer. That's ridiculous. And nor is it, I think a happy thought and I'm going to be fine. But that's just ridiculous. It's a matter of actually embracing and processing, hey, this is the pattern in my life. This is what I'm feeling. This is impacting my brain. It's building in my brain. It's impacting my telomeres. I need to deal with this. I need to embrace this process and reconceptualize it. That's the detoxing component. At the same time, I also need to be building my brain to build brain health. So I need to learn new information. I need to grow my brain, grow healthy thoughts in my brain through learning new information. So let's say you take my books and you study them, that's healthy for your brain. Not only are you getting good knowledge, but you're actually growing your brain. You're growing healthy trees in your brain, which will increase your resilience. And these are basic skills that we should be teaching our kids from young, which I've done in school systems in South Africa, in school systems in this country. And what my goal of this book, coming back to that, is to make this system available. The systems I've developed based on the research that I keep on doing to keep improving what I've for example, the book you talked about, Switch on Your Brain, that was brought out in 2013. This is now brought out in 2021. And this, in March, just a couple of months ago, my science has advanced. I can give you newer, more updated information, more insight into how to manage your mind, how to help your kids, how to help you if you have a panic attack, if you've got overgeneralization, if you've been shaped by social media, if your mind's been affected by COVID. So that's what I'm doing, is trying to put into your hands and everyone's hands, as well as the therapists, the counselors, how to manage their mind. Because our mind drives us. I mean, you can go 3 weeks without food, 3 days without water, 3 minutes without oxygen, but you don't even go 3 seconds without your mind working. You're thinking, feeling, and choosing. You go to sleep with your mind, you wake up with your mind, you eat with your mind, you have this conversation with your mind. If we don't manage our minds, our brain and body and the world will be a mess.
Wow. That was...
Sorry, I got on my soapbox there, but it's so important. And you asked me such an important question. So
that was exceptional. That's what we're here to do. We're here to listen to you. Now, we got 2 more questions for you. And this is all user-based questions. So they were voted on. And number 1 was, if we can change our brains from bad to good, can't we change it from good to bad? And here was the example. When you're always so kind to people and always so nice and you're a people pleaser, but you found time and time again, you got your toes stepped on. So now you became a mean person. Can you reverse that again?
Such a great question, and such an excellent question. It's called the plastic paradox. Your brain's always changing. So if you don't direct the change, it will change in the wrong direction. So people pleasing is toxic. Because people pleasing, and I have it on my app, I have an app called Neurocycle. Neurocycle is the name I've given the 5-step process. That is it's not a system, not a technique, it's a system for how you get your mind under control every 10 seconds to drive these changes in your brain. So it's directed neuroplasticity, okay? So it's a system that you can put any technique into. You can your scriptures, you can do whatever, but it's the system of how you use your mind to drive your brain, how to capture thoughts and renew them, okay? Very scientific. So that's what I've been developing over these 38 years, and it's in the book. And in Switch on Your Brain is one of the earlier versions. This is the updated version in this book, Cleaning Up the Mental Mess. Okay, so this ability that we have of our mind to drive our brain. So let's say now that you are people pleasing. People pleasing is a toxic behavior, but it's not. It doesn't mean that you're toxic. It means that it's a signal. It's a warning signal that there's something going on in your life, because everything you do is a signal. Because at your core, you are perfection. I mean, you're made in God's image. So at the core, you are perfection. So everything we do through our thinking, feeling, and choosing, we can choose in this experimental way, is because of something. So if you people pleasing, there's generally some kind of a lack of something in terms of your value, because you think you can only get valued if you are making people feel happy. And you maybe grew up in an environment where the only way that your identity was, or you were valued, was to make someone else happy. And even though you know that's toxic, but it's become something you keep doing. And if you do it for 63 days, and then that's 9 weeks, but you do that for 9 weeks times 9 weeks times, for 10 years, it's a very strong toxic pattern. So then it just comes out in everything, but you're resenting that because it's not who you are. You know, it's not, you recognize it's unsustainable. You recognize that this is a pattern that makes you frustrated because you're doing what you shouldn't be doing, and you're doing stuff and saying stuff that makes you mad. So you start becoming resentful and angry, and then the toxic behavior comes, kind of parallels the people pleasing, which seems like you're doing a nice thing, but you're mad while you're doing it. So there's tremendous conflict and there's guilt. And so what you have to do is say, okay, I'm people pleasing. That's okay. I even have in my app, the Neurocycle app, which you can get on iTunes and Google Play, I have a 5-step Neurocycle for how to deal with people pleasing. So what to do to find out why. Because if you're people pleasing, there is a reason. People pleasing is a behavior pattern, and it's one of 4 different signals that we give off when we're in a toxic pattern, when we are doing something that's affecting our lives. So people pleasing is the behavioral warning signal. It's going to have emotions, and those emotions will be frustration, irritation, resentment, anxiety, that kind of stuff. So those are the emotional warning signals. So the behavioral warning signals is the people pleasing. The emotional are those emotionals. Then there's going to be in your body, you're going to have physical warning signals. So you get maybe sharp gut ache every time you people please. Your gut just gets like your total bloating or terrible cramps, or maybe you get heart palpitations, but there's a physical signal. Then there'll be a perspective which is how you view your mindset, how you view life. Oh, I'm just like, the only way I can get anyone to like me is if I people please. I hate myself. So those are all warning signals that you maybe didn't pay attention to. So if there's the pattern of people pleasing, then the pattern of people pleasing, you need to unpack into these 4 signals, and you see the pattern is just one of the 4 signals. It's the behavior. You've got to get the emotions and the perspective and the bar. So you become a thought detective. So you embrace it. So you say, okay, I accept the people pleasing. I'm doing it. It's okay. It's totally cool. This is not who I am. It's what I'm doing in response to these. Is a reason. I'm amazing. There's a reason I'm doing that, but it's messing up my life and it's creating more problems. So I need to deal with this. So I'm going to embrace it. I'm going to bring it into my fold. I'm going to see the people pleasing as a helpful messenger, not as a toxic behavior and then I'm bad. I'm not bad. I'm great, but I'm doing stuff that's messing with my mind and with my relationship. So that's the attitude you come in with. And then you literally go into this 5-step process where you first of all you gather awareness in this very accepting, very kind, very loving way. You can even put 2 chairs next to each other, and in the one chair is your messy mind, you people pleasing, and in the other chair is your wise mind, your made in God's image mind, that is saying, hey, this is okay, you're just doing this, not who you are, let's fix this. And you got to train your mind to listen to that one. And guilt and condemnation are walls between wisdom and between messiness. So you want guilt and condemnation, you grab it and you use it and say, okay, I accept the guilt, I accept the condemnation, come in this chair, let me take that energy so I can listen to the wise mind. So break down the wall, listen to wisdom, and the way you break down the wall is to be kind to yourself, to be gentle, to tell yourself, hey, this is fine. I'm not the first person to people please. I'm not the first person to have guilt and condemnation. This is a very, very normal human reaction. I'm not bad. I'm still valuable. I'm still good. I'm still excellent. And this sounds crazy, but we got to do this because religion has been so destructive in terms of making people feel bad about themselves. You cannot believe how many emails, text, direct messages we get from people that are battling with severe depression because they are religiously traumatized, because you're not supposed to feel those things. Since when? Jesus felt everything in the garden. We're supposed to get in the garden and embrace it and process it, and it will get worse before it gets better. You'll get on the cross, you'll get beaten, etc. But you will rise with the wounds in your hand, which is your story that you've changed. See, you can't change what's happened to you, but you can change what's in you. So that people pleasing is something that you're doing. Embrace it. It's great. It's a helpful messenger. Sit down in your chairs and start working out why. Become that thought detective. Okay, so let me unpack this. What are my signals? Then gather awareness. I'm gathering. I'm choosing. I'm going into that apple orchard and I'm picking the apples. I'm in control. I'm not being bombarded by apples under the apple tree. I am choosing in a limited amount of time, 15 to 45 minutes over 21 days, to sit and do these 5 steps where I sit and say, okay, today's day 1. I'm going to gather awareness. Gather is a very controlled process in this very accepting way. And all the way I've just described, 2 chairs, kindness, blah, blah, all that stuff, immersed in God's love. Scientists have discovered that the gravitational fields that are keeping us from floating right now have got the pattern of love in the way that they are constructed. So we are immersed in love. So that means that we're immersed in God. God is love. Godness is loveness. So you okay, brilliant, amazing, in love. You face this thing. You're not standing in it. You're standing back from it. You're distancing yourself and you gather awareness. Okay, I can pick that apple. A bit of guilt, a bit of condemnation, a bit of frustration, the behavior of people pleasing, the physical symptom in my body, heart palpitations, I was making some stuff up. Perspective of life. Life is just, no one values me. I'm just useless. And it's hard to see, but you put that in your basket and now you reflect on that. So you go through this very sequentially, these 5 steps very sequentially, drive the mind to the neuroplasticity of the brain to the body. And what you do is you bring the toxic, ugly thought up as you do this 5-step process. As soon as you're aware of something, these protein bonds weaken. So if they weaken, it means I can remove the energy from them and I can reconstruct this. It's not going to go away. It's happened. That whatever caused the people pleasing, it's just a symptom. It's not who you are. Whatever happened, whatever the root is still going to be there, but you change it so that it becomes the healthy tree. So then I've got a little one fell out. There's now a little piece I'm going to pull out. When you've done the 21 days, 5 steps over 21 days, the neurocycle, which is the 5 steps, you will take that. All the energy will be taken away from that. This toxic thing, which caused the people pleasing and all those other signals, is now going to be converted to this. So maybe it was as a child. You get, as you go through the 5 steps of gathering awareness, of reflecting, of doing the 2 writing steps, the active reach, the very specific process that I explain very, very distinctly in my book. Switch on your brain. I'd get picking up the latest book because it's the most updated version, and the app where I walk you through it. I literally give you therapy. You're going to take all the energy out of that, and it's going to become this, which is still going to make you sad, because that people pleasing, the root may have been that your mom or your dad consistently, we're going through their own emotional stuff. And the only way and they were so bitter and twisted. So they used to just make you feel awful all the time. And so you lived your whole life trying to please them, because when you did something good and that made them happy, then they were nice to you. And that's why you did that. So you developed this behavior, which was wrong, because when they were not nice or whatever, or they were maybe drunk, or they were maybe unkind and said nasty things, which was coming from their pain, because how anyone shows up is coming from their pain, but you've been now the victim of their pain. So this is the generational stuff being perpetuated. And they probably hate themselves for doing that to the child, but they don't know what else to do. And if you people pleased in that moment, they were nicer to you. So you created a pattern. So you had to go right back to that root of, actually, you felt only way you felt valued was that way, but that's not healthy. It's not sustainable. You've now applied this. It's now contextualized to all kinds of relationships. So you've wired in this toxic pattern that's been years. So now it's going to take a few cycles of 63 days to actually unwire this thing and reconstruct it, and eventually it will become this. So it'll take about 21 days to get it to this point, and that's inside there. So this is now how I want to be. I don't want to be people pleasing all the time. I want to catch myself when I'm triggered to people please. I want to be able to. And so, but now after 21 days of doing the 5 steps, which is a very scientific process, doing all these things in your brain, getting different parts of your brain to work together, increasing the correct flow of energy between that delta, theta, alpha, beta, gamma waves, making your different structures of your brain connect in the correct way, making the 200 structures across the unique organization of your brain to flow like they should, increasing brain health, increasing body health, because whatever happens in the brain then influences the body. All of that is changing. And I show that in my research. I show how people's biological age, which is the age of your body, the cells, was actually older than their chronological age. So we had some people in our study that were in their 30s, but their bodies were of a sickly 65-year-old, which meant that they were more vulnerable to disease. And just through three weeks of mind management, using the app, not therapy from me, using the app on their own, their biological and chronological ages matched. The inflammation in their body went down. So we saw a physiological response to a mind exercise. So the mind change in the brain and the body. And by 63 days, it had become a behavior change. So by day 21, we saw the changes in the physiology, and we saw changes in the narrative, where the person was at day 1 saying, I am depression. That was their identity, thinking it was an it. By day 21, they were saying, I'm not depression. I'm depressed because of, and I'm more depressed. Listen to this. But the depression is different, and I'm more anxious, but it's different because I'm depressed because of now of seeing why I was living a life of depression. That's made me sadder, but it's different because it's a depression that I understand. I'm feeling sad. It's actually sad for what I've gone through. So no longer am I depression. I'm depressed because of. And by day 63, there's a behavior change. So they're now saying, okay, I'm depressed. I'm feeling depression because of, and now I know what to do and I know why. And I'm sad, but I know how to manage that. So I can sleep, I can get back to work, I can get my relationships going again. I can now do more neurocycles to find the other areas that invaded and fix those. And for the rest of your life, you're doing neurocycles. So I'm encouraging people to do that. For the first 21 days, you're spending 15 to 45 minutes. For the second 42 days, to convert that new pattern of thinking into a habit takes another 42 days. It doesn't take 21 days to form a habit. That's a myth. It takes a minimum of 63 days or 9 weeks to form a habit. So 21 days will do the conversion process from the toxic to the healthy. But then this has got to be strengthened. If you don't do any more, you're then going to know, okay, this is how I used to be. This is what I'm supposed to do, but I'm stuck. And then they could potentially come back again because you haven't developed this. And then that can regrow. And that's what the part of the question you asked me. So how do you prevent that? You have to take this new pattern of thinking and you spend 1 to 7 minutes a day. That's all for the next 42 days, practicing using this new way of thinking. So in the book, I explain how to do it in this book, Cleaning Up a Mental Mess. And in the Neurocycle app, I actually have all these alerts built in, and it's all me teaching you. I'm doing it through audio. So you can literally put your alerts in and it pops up. So I walk you through it. You just press play and I tell you what to do. And you just slot in what you're working on. So I mean, I couldn't make it any easier for you. And if you're in therapy, you can take that work you're doing on your own into therapy, and it'll enhance your therapy. You can then, as you get used to doing the Neurocycle, then in the middle of the night when you wake up and find yourself ruminating about how you people please during the day and how you're mad at yourself for falling, you can then use the Neurocycle to say, okay, no, hang on, I fell. It's okay. It doesn't matter. Let me go rebuild. Let's go back to what we constructed. Let's get strong again. That it just carries over into your daily life. And I showed with my research, you can become 81% more effective in managing what the question you asked me, managing the people pleasing, the ruminating, the overgeneralization, the anger with yourself, the guilt, the condemnation, those suppressed traumas, all that stuff. You can become 81% more effective in managing those. 10% in your life will never be the same. 81% is phenomenal. And that's how powerful mind management is.
That's how powerful Dr. Leaf is, cleaning up your mental mess. We're going to make sure that we link that book and also the app. I'm actually going to start that app because that's incredible. And those who are following the Julian J. Franco Show, I'm going to be just giving you guys updates, maybe bi-weekly or whatnot, because I'm sold. I'm 100% sold. And that this app can be found where?
iTunes, Google Play, wherever you find apps.
You're everywhere. Okay, excellent, excellent. Now,
and it's the only thing. It's just we've just done an upgrade on it. So there's it's organic. So once you're part of the community, it's a community we're building. We're eventually going to have a whole chat forum, and you'll be able to do. I'm doing a whole neurocycle lab where you'll be able to directly work with me weekly on dealing with stuff. In the meantime, now we've got the basic program, and we've got 36 little programs, mini neurocycle guides, like for people pleasing, or panic attacks, or overgeneralization, or helping your kids with anxiety that you can draw on. And it's organic. So we keep adding more and more. And there's resources in it, and it links you back to the podcast. And so it's just amazing. I mean, it really is. There's a couple of, like any app, there's a couple of little headache, little bumps and things that we ironing
with
out.
all apps, yeah.
Don't forget that we fix it. If you have an issue, just send emails through, and my team will sort it out for you. But we've got, I don't know, thousands. It's actually thousands that are on it, and the results have been phenomenal. Because I can't give everyone therapy, but this way I can. I can teach you how to manage your mind, and if you do it along with the book, and you can, you get switch on your brain too. All of it works together. It's just each one is an advancement on this. But if people want to start somewhere, I would recommend this book with the app is a great place to start.
Cleaning up your mental mess, and with the app, we're gonna have that link now. So we have time for one more question, just really quickly, one sentence answer. Is there anything, Dr. Leaf, that you were completely certain on? You were sold, nobody could tell you otherwise, but recently, maybe within the last 3 to 6 months, you changed your mind completely on it?
Oh, yes. There's been a lot of incidents. In fact, change is something I embrace. I remember always telling my kids there's two things you can be certain of in life. That's my love for you, and that things are going to keep changing. And you have to live with change. And we've got this very weird sort of mentality where people think, okay, well, that's how I used to be, and I can never change from that. But you don't. You're constantly growing. Your mind is never the same. Experiences are never the same. Change is never the same. And you can grow up with very fixed cultural beliefs. We grow up in, we are impacted by environment. We are products of our environment. It's about you in the world. So your cultural beliefs, your religious beliefs, your philosophies, these that you've grown up with, when you become more able to sort of judge as an adult, as you can, and even teenagers, as you can start seeing the impact of your belief systems on your life, you can embrace that and stand back and change it. If what you believe was right is hurting anyone, it's definitely not from God. It's definitely something you need to change. And this is where I think the religious community really has to wake up, because they're so fixed on, and there's so much arguing amongst the different religious communities about what is right and what's wrong. No one understands God. All we understand is that love doesn't hurt people. And that's the measure I always say. If something that I believe is hurting, even if it's one person, then I must change, because that is something that should not be hurting anyone. So that's the rule that I use. So I am always changing, and I've made some radical changes that I've been very, very criticized for, especially by the religious community. And it doesn't worry me at all. I'm not scared of what people say, because I know that if it hurts someone and I've changed, then that person won't be hurt anymore, and I won't be able to hurt anyone else with a certain belief system. Same thing with my kids. I mean, you have one set of philosophies and you realize that doesn't work. You've got to change, so that's it. In my marriage all the time, we're forever changing.
Dr. Leaf, I love it all. And I just want to close with one thing that I heard you say. It's like, who are you to say this is the right way and the only way when you look into the world and you see all these different cultures, different belief systems, but one thing that's
Exactly.
constant is love. I've never
Exactly.
heard that, Dr. Leaf, and I thought that was so, it takes a human of massive awareness to just like say it in that way, and it just landed with me, and everything you said today truly landed. So I'm going to pick up that new book and also that app personally, and I'm going to keep you guys, updated, because when there's good work like this and you're not doing it, what are you doing in your life? Like, seriously, right? Like, you're concerned about buying a new outfit or, a new car or this or that, but not managing your mind. And Dr. Leaf, you've completely blown me away every single time my eyes have seen you or ears have heard your teachings. I'm a fan forever. And is there one last thing you want to tell the audience today?
Well, you've been a great interview, and your enthusiasm is just is infectious. I love it. It's been it's really been a lovely, lovely interview. So thank you. I think I would love to just remind people that two statements, if I may, and that is what I already said, that you can go 3 weeks without food, 3 days without water, 3 minutes without oxygen, but your mind, it doesn't even stop for 3 seconds. Mind management is not even a choice. If you don't manage your mind's still working, but in a messy way. So why not learn the tools of mind management? And then another thing, you can't control the events and circumstances of your life, but you can control your responses. So you can't change what's happened to you, but you can change what's in you and what it looks like in you. In other words, how it's going to play out into your future. And that's the power you hold in your hands when you understand your mind. You are your mind. There you go.
Listen, if you do not purchase that book and sign up for the app, I don't know what you're doing. That's all I'm going to say. Dr. Leaf, thank you so much. I'll keep you updated on my progress as well. But this is
Okay, thank you.
one of my top 2 interviews of all time. I'm going to
Oh,
say that.
wow, that's so
And
sweet.
there it
Thank
goes. Dr. Leaf, please enjoy that family dinner tonight. And this was
you.
very special for me. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you
Leaf.
so much. Bye bye. Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Thank
Bye bye,
you.
everyone.